Thanks so much for clicking on this video. Feel free, this is going to be a long episode today as we're talking about how to plan a styled shoot. So feel free to watch if you want. We're going to have a lot of behind the scenes imagery and videos on the screen throughout as we're talking about how this whole planned shoot came to be. But also if you want to just reduce this tab or just put your phone to the side, maybe you're in the car, feel free to just kind of listen because we have a lot of value delivered to you today from all of our amazing vendors here. So super excited that you're here and we'll jump right into it. I will start. I'm Asher. I'm a photographer and filmmaker and also opened up Duluth Creative Co., which is this co-working space and shared photography studio, and was lucky enough to be the host of this styled shoot. So, yeah.
Should I go next? Down the line?
Go for it. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm Olivia Shaner. I am a couple and wedding photographer. Yeah. So with the styled shoot, I just had these ideas. And so I reached out to Alyssa originally, and then she connected me with Mariah and Ellen, and everything else just fell into place. So yeah, I was a photographer, I guess.
I love it. I love it. It's so good.
Yeah. I'm Mariah McKechnie. I own Northland Special Events, the Vault Event Decor Rental, and Superior Blooms, which is a real trifecta of photo shoot resources. And I very luckily got to be involved in the inaugural shoot here in the Duluth Creative Co.
And my name is Alyssa Boitry, and I am the lead designer and manager at Superior Blooms. So I work right alongside Mariah and next door to Asher. So it's all fun things.
I love it. We all, for those watching, we all work in the same building here. And so maybe we'll talk more about that in a future episode or a future podcast. But it's cool to just kind of all exist in this same building, the same ecosystem, even though we're all kind of running our own businesses. And it's been really cool.
It's very Friends vibes.
Yes.
Because we're definitely busting through each other's doors across the hallway and just living in those moments together, especially as everything's getting started and so much excitement is happening. You always have somebody to share in it with you.
Yeah.
It's made it all the more fun to have you here too.
Totally. I love it. And so what we're going to do in this episode is basically just have some time to sit down and just talk about the styled shoot that we had in this space and all of our different roles that we had in it and how it happened. Why do we do a styled shoot, and then the actual execution of how it went. And then we'll kind of end the episode later with some more time to give advice to you on if you're planning a styled shoot, what things to do, what things maybe not to do, what things to be aware of, and we'll go from there. And just so you know, you don't have to watch this whole episode just start to finish. If you do want to skip ahead, we are going to have chapter markers at the bottom of the video, so feel free to look at the different topics and things that we're talking about and skip to what is most relevant to you. I think that a really good place to start would be what is a styled shoot? And why would one do a styled shoot? So I don't know who wants to take that one first, but just kind of defining what a styled shoot is. Because I know that there's probably a lot of photographers out there that hear this term all the time. And we're do I need to be doing a styled shoot? Or do I just go get some friends and shoot? Why would I want to put in all of the effort to is it basically just a whole fake wedding? What? I don't even know. So where do we start? How do we do a styled shoot? What is it in the first place?
Well, from my perspective, it's actually more than anything a creative outlet and opportunity to, as a creative, do something that is living in your brain that you want to bring to life or collaborate on. Because most of the time we're working under a client's guidelines. We're bringing their vision to life, which is very rewarding in its own right. But in a styled shoot, it's collaborating on ideas that you've wanted to try. And it's also a marketing function. So primarily it's to get your content out there freely that you can use for your marketing. And then finally, it's collaboration. It's a chance to work with other vendors to bring something together and just kind of see, how do you work together? What was the process like? Would this be a good team in a future event? So it has a lot of reasons, a lot of purpose and reasons why we always participate whenever we can. Because no matter what, after we do it, we're oh, that was good. It might be good because we creatively got to try something new. it might be good because we met someone new. But I would say, especially a well-run shoot with a great team is like, it's a creative high.
Yeah.
Well, and I think too, sometimes inevitably because you're serving clients and they're looking at what other people have done and all these types of things, oftentimes it happens to be similar. Like obviously the statement white and green bouquets, right? Like if you look at from the floral perspective, are very popular because they're traditional, they're elegant, they're timeless, all those things. But being able to try a new fun idea might just spark that inspiration for other people. And, you know, being able to show off everyone's different style in it is also pretty cool because it gives people different ideas and, you know, fresh perspective on like, oh, I could do something fun and look how good it would turn out. I don't have to stick with the traditional all the time. So I think that's a cool opportunity too.
Yeah, for sure. And to add to that, as a photographer, I think it's a great way to also just maybe get your creative juices flowing a little bit, especially in wintertime when it's slower. It's fun to plan something and have content to post or just to even get those creative ideas out and like put in a picture. And as for a beginner photographer, I think styled shoots are really a great way to build your portfolio also, just to get like different experiences, connections with different vendors, build friendships and community with people. Yeah, it's fun. Like you said, it's a creative high. If it goes really well, like it's so fun.
I think that's a really good like transition into like for you, like what was the origin of like wanting to do a styled shoot? Like how did you one day just be like, you know what, I'm going to do this, you know? Well, I know I saw that you were doing some coaching with Morgan, who was actually the model for the shoot. So I'm curious, like just having seen that on your Instagram story, like how did this idea come to be and what were your goals in doing a styled shoot? And then what were you wanting out of that, right?
So my number one reason to why I wanted to have a styled shoot was to make connections with other vendors. So this is my first year into like wedding photography. And I was like, man, I really want to make more connections with other photographers, models, vendors, just to have that instead of, I don't know, have that face interaction. You know what I mean? Face-to-face interaction. Yeah, so that was one of the reasons. But then also too, I was getting so sick of just doing the back end work, like office administration work at home. So I wanted to do something fun and creative. And so, yeah, that's when I reached out to Alyssa and was like, hey, I have all these ideas. What do you think? Yeah.
And for us, we get involved in shoots usually in two ways. One is we conceptualize it ourselves in-house design wise. Maybe it's a new venue that we want to get content at. So we contact them and say, could we, do a shoot there? Or, we just have like a crazy idea that we want to see if we can make it happen. So we'll start designing around that and then pull the vendors in. Or we are contacted by another vendor, typically a photographer, I would say drives it 90% of the time. Sometimes the venue contacts us because they, again, want to show off their space. And then we get involved and run with wherever they started within their ideas. So that's usually how we get involved. And like I said, we rarely say no, especially if we can have a coordinating role in it to make sure that it goes smoothly, because we just get such great content and it sparks relationships and just creative ideas.
Well, and speaking of relationship, Olivia reached out, and actually she had reached out to Superior Blooms probably right before Christmas time, like right before I actually was hired. And then kind of had circled back and been like, oh my gosh, winter's almost over, but I have this idea. I was like, hey, I'm new, let's chat, So I really didn't have any basis of it or whatever going into it, but we chatted and she's like, yeah, and I was thinking about talking to other people to get some rentals and stuff. And so then I said, haha, funny, and I might know people, but I asked where the shoot was first and foremost, and she's like, "Does Creative Co?" And I was like, "Wait, I think that's downstairs."
And I was sitting in the background just eavesdropping because we were in a shared office that day, and all of a sudden I was like, heck yeah, we're in. It's across the hall, and it all magically just was like, boom, meant to be where we are.
It all came together so smoothly.
Yeah.
Like I really didn't think it was going to happen just because there were curveballs after curveballs.
Yeah.
And then finally it was like, as soon as I met you and then connected with everyone else, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is actually happening. And I had no idea, Superior Blooms, that you all were right across the hall, because I don't think I had even talked to you yet. But I was like, I want to have it here. I just don't know when. But yeah.
Well, and as it obviously we're kind of a special unit, a special team, because though we're individual companies, we're 3 in 1, right? So we all work together really well. So that also helps. But I feel like a lot of people in the industry, especially as you keep putting yourself out there and wanting to be involved in these types of things, like as much as you might be quote unquote competitors, like you're all helping each other. And so there, I feel like it's very common to be like, hey, yeah, we've worked with them before. Hey, you should try these people, sharing contacts and stuff. So it's a cool industry to be in.
Absolutely. I agree.
So what were some of those like curveballs that you were talking about? Like in the beginning, you have the idea, you're going to do it, getting sick of the administration, wanting to build more of a wedding portfolio. How did that whole beginning process go from having the idea to then reaching out and talking to Alyssa and then actually hitting the ground running and getting some of the planning actually happening? What was the hardest part about like those early phases?
I think it was mostly just myself like holding me back because I was really intimidated to reach out to people. So I would be like, oh man, I don't know. I'll just wait till next week. And then it would be a couple weeks later and I was like, okay, I just need to do this. But also this was before I'd even heard of Duluth Creative Co. opening up. So I was reaching out to a bunch of different venues and nowhere around the area was really working out or fitting the idea that I had. So it was just like, oh man, I don't think this is going to work. And then a few other things had just come up where I was like, this isn't going to happen. But then, yeah, it did. So yeah, I just reached out. I recontacted you, I think. And then that's when I connected with you. And then the rest is history.
Yeah. So let's dive into that history.
Okay.
The simplicity of a DM to say, hey, I like your work. Are you interested in collaboration in the future? Whether you have a date in mind or just like in general, we see those. Like I record that. Like, yeah, let's do something, or at least introduces me to you. So I know I'm on your feed. I'm like looking at everything. Your name and your business name is in my back of my head. So if you have that impulse, just reach out because you don't know what's going to happen. And getting out of your own way is, one of the keys to life. So
yeah, that's true.
Just do it.
I love that. I think to like piggyback off of that, I feel like it's so easy to like feel that imposter syndrome and like to reach out to like people that are so established in the industry, right? So like as like a new photographer or a younger photographer in your like first like 3 years, it can be really hard to build those connections. And I think that's why in the wedding industry, at least from the research I've done, the typical burnout rate for a photographer is about 3 years. I think that it's like after you do like some shoots for friends and you do some, weddings for friends and you do, these more kind of inner circle things, to bridge that gap between your circle that you've known throughout your life and then to actually connecting with people in the industry who are also growing their own businesses, tapping into that can be so intimidating and so difficult. But I think that the biggest thing is that you've mentioned is that a DM is not difficult. And the worst thing is that you don't get a response or they say no because maybe they're busy, or maybe they're already doing another one. And I don't want anyone that's like listening to feel defeated if you get a no from someone or you don't get a response. Like think about how many times someone reaches out to you to like sell a product, or every single time like someone like runs an ad campaign, like they're not getting 100% of the people. Like it's not about that at the end of the day. I think that what's more important is like getting up off your living room couch, getting out there in the world, meeting people, having those connections, jumping into people's DMs and making something happen, because nothing's happening on your living room couch, out there in the world with people doing cool things and using each other's collective creativity. That is, I think, really what separates someone that's early in the industry to someone that's going to have longevity in their career,
Well, and as an industry veteran at this point with 15 years under my belt, I'm as excited to meet someone new as ever and always have been. So it's really in your head that, you know, oh, that I'm new, they won't accept me or I can't.
Right.
Don't like get that out of your head, because there's a constant flow. And we're always looking for the next talent that is coming up who has fresh with energy and is maybe like in a photography standpoint shooting in the style that is becoming popular, or we have to have a portfolio of photographer options that fit in multiple styles because clients want all different things. So just like anybody listening who's thinking like, I'm new, if you're good, I don't care how long you've been doing it. I can see the talent in your images. And if you're great to work with, even better. So like, just try. And if the person doesn't connect and it doesn't go forward, it just wasn't meant to be. That wasn't the right partnership. You were not aligned in the same zone and energy at that time. Yeah. But when you do hit it, it's like liquid gold. So just off and running. And I'm just so excited now because I've met you.
Yeah, same.
And I feel like this could just open doors to so much collaboration in the future.
Absolutely.
Well, and final thought, I guess, because something someone said triggered this. You know, from a floral standpoint, from a design standpoint, in general, whether it's floral or setup or anything like that, I feel like this is how you gain experience. Just bottom line, you know, like you think of anything else in life, you have to practice, right? And so this is kind of like a low risk, quote unquote, practice to be able to try something totally different. And if it flops, like you just quick make a change, you know, like putting something on the wall and designing on it and then going, or, ooh, that was a really good idea. Now I got that back here, you know, and then like, that's how you sell things too. So it's kind of a full circle, like it's practice. And so obviously you want to be on the right team to practice, right? It only enhances you. And, you know, that risk is putting yourself out there to be vulnerable, but it helps you grow. So,
yeah. So jumping into that like design aspect you're talking about, like the trial and error and like coming up with the idea, how did the design for the shoot, and as we're talking about this, I'll like throw up some images on the screen so you can see what the shoot ended up looking like. And all of like the beautiful florals and set design and just all of the amazing like vendors that we had to make this happen. What did that design process look like? How do we come up with the theme, the colors, the florals, the poses, like the dress? I remember like you going and getting the dress and sending me like, here's a sneak peek, and it's just like a corner of it. I'm like, no, give me more. Like what did that whole kind of process of creating the theme and the design of the shoot, how did that start?
So originally I had just went on Pinterest and created like a mood board, and I put together colors that I wanted to incorporate into this. And then, yeah, it was super simple. And I sent it over to you, and then they just like took that and ran with it. It was so stinking gorgeous. Like everything they put together. When Alyssa sent me photos the night before the styled shoot, I was sitting on my couch, was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like it just absolutely rocked my world in the best way.
Well, and you know, I am very, very green, in the industry. I started saying that and I thought, oh, that's lame.
No. It fits, it's perfect.
But so I haven't been able to do a lot of these yet. Actually, the most I've done is with you guys, you know, even like the wedding show was still kind of like a styled shoot in its own way, you know? And so I don't have a ton of experience of it, but when we sat down together, the three of us, you, me, and Ellen, and we chatted, we kind of were like, okay, we've been in this literal construction zone, you know? This whole building has been a construction zone for a long time, and we're seeing this kind of industrial vibes, and then we're like, ooh, how about bricks? Ooh, how about we just like really dive into it? Like what if the groom like works, you know, in an industrial job, you know? Like we just like totally made a story in our head and kind of ran with it. And just being able to utilize just the beautiful room that we're in, you know, it's got the brick, exposed brick, it's got, you know, a whole bunch of different metals, it's got wood, it's got all the things, right? So being able to dive deep into that and kind of create this space's own style, I think was kind of what we dove into, really. Yeah. I mean.
Well, after you shared your initial inspiration, just for me, all I really need to see is like a couple photos. If like I can just get, and this goes with a wedding client, you know, really anyone we're designing for, I get a couple pictures, I can usually pull from it pretty quickly, like an aesthetic and a palette. And then the permission on your end to say, you guys just go with it.
Mm-hmm.
That's huge, because it is way easier to put out great work when we're being trusted to just do what we do best. And so that's one of the best possible things that can happen. Because when you unleash the creativity, at least in my mind and on my team, like we're all in, we're gonna give it our best, and then the unexpected things happen. So, and then I told you when we met in person too, I look for avatars in designing around a shoot, because I'm thinking like, who's the couple, who's in, what's their story? So that's really helpful. And when the three of us sat down, so Alyssa, Ellen, and I, Ellen is the manager at the Vault, Ventacore Rental, we realized that in this case, the avatar was sort of us and the Duluth Creative Co. and our space. And so then once we had that, we literally were sitting in our construction zone around this beautiful table that our contractors had just put together. And it just came. It was like, what if we used, on a really gorgeous table full of floral and linen, we piled up a bunch of bricks and wood and nuts and bolts and see what happens. So we just started like mocking it up. And then all of a sudden I was like, yes, this is it. We're running with this. And then we also conceptualize, okay, we're in this small venue. What if all of it can happen within this space? We can have a ceremony set up, a lounge set up, and the small reception, because so many weddings today are leaning towards a really small footprint with limited guest count, and then going all out with their floral decor. So it's fun to think about this space and how we could use it to have all of that happening within the same space. And that was cool. And they could all tie together so cohesively. So that's what sparked it. The next thing that happens ultimately is we order flowers, and you're somewhat limited to what you can get, like how it comes in. It's a big risk. Like anytime you put together a flower order, especially if you're, maybe a little bit short time, or you're just kind of winging it, they come in and then we just look at each other and are like, let's go. Let's see what happens. And the coolest parts were what happened on the event day, because we had flowers. We had more than we needed to do the pieces we'd committed to. And we thought, well, if we have time when we get there, we're just gonna try something. We're just gonna try something. So you'll see
how the best ideas are born.
Yeah.
We're just gonna try something.
In my world, like I'll come into the room and I'll be like, I have an idea, and then everybody stops and is like, oh dear, where is this going? Where is this going to go?
Halfway through the conversation, we're like, we're on.
Yeah, I don't even have to say it. I just look up at her and we're like, yes, let's do it. So we had a big long piece of chicken wire, dragged it over here amidst everything happening in the middle of this styled shoot setup. Find a nail on the wall that's behind this, hook it up there, like a nail that's been there for 100 years.
Oh yeah, it's like I've been looking at some of those because I've been taking some of them out of the wall because I'm like, oh, that's not safe, especially over here, because I knew like the bride was going to be over here, and I was like, oh, that would not be good. But they're so old. They're like, for like any historians out there, they're like the square nails, like that I'm not a historian. I don't know that much more about it, but square nails for any historians out there.
Square nails.
It's I've been watching a lot of Ghost Town Living on YouTube. It's like one of my guilty pleasures. What a divergent story here. But he was talking about those square nails, and I was just like, oh my gosh. Anyway, so square nail on the wall.
Square nail. The chicken wire.
It all connected.
Installation.
Yeah.
Dragged it down the wall. And without even speaking, the two of us just like go at it and start shoving baby's breath and flowers. And when you have a good teammate and partner, you don't even have to like talk about it. Like it just starts evolving. And we were able to add a really cool piece with an installation on this wall. And that just happened that morning. If you overthink it, you'll either decide not to do it because you'll fill your head with like ways it could go wrong. But if you just dive in and do it, I mean, that was my favorite part of the whole day. So, the design evolved up until the shooting was going on, and continues, because then we even flipped a few pieces from our ceremony set to put them in the reception set. And that's the fun part about a creative or a style shoot too, is that you can be dynamically adding, subtracting, try this, try that. And I like to be present on those shoots so that we can be objectively in the background being like, yeah, actually, let's add this in. Let's pull this out. Like, let's stage this shot. And we were able to do that whole day, which was really cool.
Well, and even during setup, we're scurrying back and forth across the hall, like, ooh, we need nuts and bolts, just like scurry across. And, you're setting things up and you're like, nah, we need A, B, and C. Or, ooh, this will look really good if we make 4 more bud vases or whatever the case is. And so it's cool to be able to, kind of have that freedom, but also just like trust each other. I think that's the biggest thing, like the 3 of us on a team really bounce off of each other really well. Like it was cool to come in and watch Mariah and Ellen bounce off of each other and then learn how to do that with them. But then being able to make a contact like you, Olivia, or Asher, and just being able to be like, how about this? And kind of just bouncing off each other is just really fun and gets that extra spark, I think, too.
Yeah.
It goes back to that trust and the magic that happens when the dynamics are there. And you'll see that on an event, wedding day, when everyone's in tune and we're all working on behalf of the couple and they trust us and let us go, we'll go over and above, and the magic that happens. And you couldn't plan that. And I'm a wedding planner. Yeah. And the magic to my wedding planning is I leave room for the unexpected. Yeah. I leave room for the things that could happen that I couldn't possibly have imagined. And I'm open and ready to jump on those when they happen. And that's something I tell couples all the time is like, you got to leave margin here for better than you could dream. And it takes trust, but I'm learning it.
So the next kind of thing I want to segue into, unless you had anything to add to that, Olivia.
I was just going to add to say that backdrop, or like that flower backdrop, was my favorite setup. It was so stinking pretty. I remember when I saw you guys pulling it, I was like, what in the world? In the back of my head, I was like, what? I don't know. You know what? I trust them. I trust them.
It was literally chicken wire on a stick. Like, I'm not even joking. It was like, what are you doing?
I was like, but you know what? I trust them because I've seen your work, and and just meeting you, I was like, I trust them. And it turned out to be gorgeous. I mean, every single person here was like, oh my gosh, take a photo of me next to this. Like, this is so pretty. So you guys knocked that out. It was great.
Yeah, that was insane.
On that note, too, something like that was really exciting for us and for our client work, because in just having the opportunity to do it, we can now sell it. Like, we can tell people, you could afford this, because we know what went into it and how it could happen for them in a way that's like not scary. We're like, oh yeah, we can totally rock that out in, an allotted period of time with a product that doesn't, isn't unreasonable. That makes it very sellable for a client job. And we wouldn't have known that unless we just got a chance to try it. And so that's another, going back to why do you do styled shoots? Exactly that. Yeah. And I had told Alyssa, we did a previous one, you just watch. We're going to do this arch in the shape of a moon. And you're going to get an email like the next day or a DM. Somebody wants that because they saw that you did it. So they believed that it could happen.
It happened. It
literally happened. She's like, you're not going to believe this. I was like, no, I knew that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Which is awesome, because then we get to, keep perfecting how we do that and delivering it for a client. Like, that's our end goal for businesses, right?
Right.
So,
yeah. Well, and, introducing new options as far as like big installations or designs or whatever, but also just sort of, going through the flower list, like we had the color palette, we had obviously a general idea of what it was going to look like, but we didn't really have specific flowers we needed. And it's hard to know exactly what shade said thing is going to come in, like no 2 flowers are alike. So ordering the flowers and stuff like that, we were kind of like, how about this? Let's try that. Like we sort of left that open-ended too. And when we got it, just kind of like, okay, they look good. And we rolled with it, and
in this space, the colors with the brick,
oh my gosh.
I couldn't have 100% known that would be the case, because you don't know what you're going to get. And it was perfect. It couldn't have highlighted the space.
Those warmer tones with like the pink and then the green of like just the foliage was just insane. The way it just all came together. So, yeah. But speaking of how it all came together, how did the actual execution itself go? I know that we had some amazing weather.
I keep thinking to myself,
I wasn't able to be here because I couldn't get out of the 2 feet of snow on my street. It's crazy. But anyway, how did that day go?
Talk about that morning.
Oh my gosh.
Even the night before,
I was stressing. Oh my gosh. My amazing assistant, Emma, she, God bless her, because I was texting her like all night long. I'm like, the snow is terrible. And I had even thought, I was like, maybe we need to reschedule. But then I was like, man, like, there's just no way because everyone's so involved and invested. Like, there's no way. We're just going to go for it. Yeah, it was crazy. It was crazy. I don't know how much snow we got, but
Well, in
a
that
lot.
whole storm, it was like between 12 and 15 inches, depending on where you were.
Yeah.
Over 2 days. But particularly that morning, we had a huge dump,
Mm-hmm.
and then it just kept going the whole day too. And it was a relief to know it was still happening.
Yeah.
Because we've already done the flowers. Like
Right.
the investment's been made.
Right.
We were basically set up. But at the same time, it was like, there are people that aren't going to be there. So
Yeah.
we're going to have to fill in for them and make it work. But I got to tell you, when I got here and Emma was at the door and I'm like crawling over a snowbank, her delight and just like warm
Yeah.
welcome, I was like, this day's going to be good. I
Yeah.
knew from that very first second, I was like, this is going to be a good day. We're going to have
Yeah.
fun. And we were all cozy inside here working and watching the snow out the window. We're putting on this like very much more of a spring vibe. Was such a fun irony.
Mhm.
So we were relieved that it happened. But boy, people made feats of effort and travel.
Right.
And holy cow. to get here.
Ashley, the gal who did our cake, came all the way from Solon Springs, and she's like, I'm gonna be late because it's a little sketchy out here. And we're like, girl, take your time.
That's like
It's
45
cool.
minutes away.
Yeah, and I
Like-
mean, it took them much longer than that.
Well, yeah.
And
Yes, well,
you know, we were lucky enough to be, you know, Mariah's 10 minutes one way, I'm 5 minutes the other way. So, I mean, we just slid down. I was like, I had my snow pants on. I was prepared to walk. Like, I was like, we're going to get
Doing
there.
this.
I can't see out my window of my bedroom, but we're going to get there. Like, it's fine.
when I was like, I didn't grow up in North Dakota for nothing. I know how to drive in this. Like, he is be psycho. Like, just pedal to the metal. And that's what I said to Emma. Like, first thing, I was like, he is. Just be a little psycho behind the wheel, and you're good. But yeah, I mean, you gotta take everything that you get in the universe, like
Right.
winter driving skills, and rock them on the right time.
Right.
One of my favorite things, Mariah comes rolling in and she goes, I thought it was important to curl my hair this morning. Because, you know, photo shoot. I was like, yes, the important things are that we curled our hair.
Well, and yeah, it's just a chance you got to take, especially living in northern Wisconsin and northern Minnesota. You never know what the weather's going to be like. I mean, we had just talked about it a couple days before we were told we were getting a winter storm, and it was supposed to be cloudy. And like a few weeks before that, it was supposed to be sunny, and then it was cloudy, and now a winter storm. And it was just like, well, you know,
Well,
whatever.
At the end of the day, we're wedding professionals. Had it been a wedding day, what would we have done?
Exactly.
Figured out how to get there. And
Mhm.
as a wedding planner, like I would have figured out how to get my team there. I would have gone and picked them up in my own vehicle if I had to.
Mhm.
So that's what I got to do to make the show go on. And that's ultimately my job. I mean, the client is invested and planned for 18 months. Something's happening today.
Right.
People are getting married. Like,
Yeah.
that's the bottom line. Certainly, you know, I suppose there's weather conditions where that's not the case. But in that snowstorm, we were going for it. So
Yeah.
I think we all have a little bit of that, like, the show must go on.
Mhm.
And it did.
Mhm.
How did everyone's here now, we made it, like how did the shoot go the rest of the day? Like what was the energy like? Were there any issues, things that came up that we had to improvise on? I know for you, like this was your first time since it was a darker day with all the snow. This is your first time shooting with studio lights, right? Or had you shot in a studio before?
No, I was internally freaking out because I'm a natural light photographer and I normally don't use flashes or off camera flash or lighting. So
Or these constant lights that were used for the shoot. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But honestly, it was such a good learning experience because it pushed me out of my comfort zone and it made me learn more like how I can, you know, pose Morgan and Brayden and like get the best lighting or even on my settings on my camera. But yeah, so I was kind of freaking out internally. Oh, really? Well, that's good because I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous right now.
Well,
But
the energy was impeccable.
Yes.
Like, from the minute we arrived downstairs, I could hear it. I could hear the voices of just like the positivity. And that's like when I come into a wedding scenario and I'm about to go into the bridal suite where the bridesmaids and the bride are getting ready, I always have a sense of like, this is going to be a good day because I can feel it, the energy, and I immediately, and it just kept going. I mean, we were all in sync with 1,000 things going on.
yeah.
But everybody was in such a great mood.
Yeah.
It was one of the best shoots I've ever done from that perspective.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, there really was this camaraderie with
Yes.
everyone, and everyone got along really well, which, I mean, you have a bunch of different people, different personalities working together, and yeah, it was like we've known each other forever.
Yeah,
it was really fun. It was
yeah.
so fun. We were having like dance parties or whatnot. It was so good. Yeah, she has she's the professional DJ under.
Well, you know, middle school
Yeah.
throwbacks are important. Well, and I think it was really fun for us because, I mean, we kind of were a little bit more chill about it because we're kind of in our own home. You know, like we normally when we're at a venue or whatever the case is, we're kind of and like walking around and doing all the things, you know, but because we were in a smaller space for one, and then for two, we were in our own house, so to speak, we just felt like we could sit back and kind of watch you guys do your work in a little bit of a way, you know, and it was fun to watch, you know, Morgan, the model, that's her name, right? Okay, is a photographer, Jocelyn, and you were shooting also, and watching you guys kind of, as Morgan's standing there posing, she's like, hey, you could also do blah, blah, blah.
She was amazing.
You know, and then you and Jocelyn bouncing off each other like, ooh, I'm going to get this angle and you get that angle and then let's, you know, doing all those things and watching you guys like all your wheels turning all at once was really, really cool to watch for us.
Yeah.
You know, just seeing the behind the scenes of that.
That's a key that I've noticed over
Yeah.
time is a real couple modeling
Yeah.
is huge. Even if you wouldn't think like, oh, they look like models, like they did, but
Mhm.
the chemistry of a real couple is way more beneficial
Mhm.
than the two, you know, perfect stranger, but they're, you know,
Right.
have a modeling career. Like I'd rather see a real couple in that scenario, and that's something that's kind of newer, which we've been doing, just because they have the chemistry. And then when the model also knows exactly how to pose, and,
Yes.
and like advise, that was amazing.
Yes.
Get a
Because
photographer,
she
get a
had great
dancer.
ideas.
Right.
Yeah,
Get
yeah.
an act,
Yeah.
you know.
So how did
actor.
that come about with like getting Morgan and Braden, right, to be the models for that? Because like obviously, like I've seen a lot of Morgan's like content on Instagram, and just like such a positive, like engaging personality.
Yes.
Just was so perfect when you were like, Morgan's the model for this. I was like, of course she is. you
Right.
know?
I know,
How-
she's perfect.
So how
I
did
know.
you go about, or what advice would you give to anyone like looking for a model? And also for anyone listening, if you can hear, there's some shoveling going on outside. So if you hear that, that's what that is. But hopefully not. But anyway, so yeah, how did getting Morgan to be the model happen? And then what advice would you give to anyone else looking for their model for a styled shoot?
Well, my first piece of advice would be find someone that you connect with as the model, just because you could have, like you said, someone who's a professional model, but if you don't really have that connection there, you're not going to jive the day of. And I think that's really important to have that relationship and like connection there. And as for how I got Morgan to model, I literally just posted an ISO on in search of on Instagram, and she commented, and I was like, heck yes, I would love you and Braden to model, because I know Morgan outside of just being a photographer. You know, she's also a friend and a mentor of mine. I was like, oh my gosh, she'd be perfect. And and she knows, she's super experienced, so like she was like giving us different prompts too, or like, oh, actually, what about this, or like that. And so
Well, and something I loved just from the little experience I have in general, and even just like, you know, seeing other content is, I feel like girls always love this type of thing, right? But it's really hard to find a guy, even if he's madly in love with his girlfriend, wife, whomever, or, you know, it's hard to find two people in general, not just guy and girl, that both have fun doing it, right? And like own the role, sort of, because I mean, in a way you are acting, even though you are a couple. And so like finding two gals, two guys, a guy and a girl who really love the day and are having fun too. And so watching not only Morgan but Braden lean into the role and just like their own chemistry, of course, but then understanding their assignment was really, really fun, because I've been at some shoots before where it's like, come on, you know, and like you're trying to figure out how to get them to like smile just for a second so it's authentic, you know? So I think that's also important, is like not only like jiving with the people you're working with, but also finding a couple that like genuinely can have fun doing it.
It
Yes.
helps when you have an amazing DJ like Alyssa
Oh.
who figures out what their actual first dance song was
Mhm.
and then cues it up when the first look photos are happening. She's like, I got this.
And they both were kind
Chills, literally chills.
and they were both kind of like, oh.
Oh, that was fun. Yeah, that
It was so
a
sweet.
key moment
Yeah.
right there.
Well, I mean,
Ugh.
I was a dancer, so I have a song for everything pretty much. So I was like, ooh.
And a soundtrack is huge for the day.
Yeah.
And I remember when we worked on another shoot together, you had the speaker like on your person.
Yeah,
like,
just a tiny little
clipped to
JBL.
you.
Like it
Yeah.
wasn't like a nice big speaker or anything.
And
Just a little
I remember
something.
you being like, "This is my coffee shop vibes."
The playlist is called Coffee Beans.
Coffee beans.
Yeah, if you're on Apple
And-
Music, link in description.
So good, and I love that because I've done shoots before where the music background wasn't thought out,
Mhm.
and it's just this like quiet awkwardness when you need that music to like get into it, and evolving it too throughout whatever you're doing during the day is really important. If like the pump up vibes in the morning, and again on a real wedding day, samesies,
Right.
right? Like
Yep.
you need that music while you're getting ready, and then you need something that's going to give you some emotional content when you're doing those first looks. So I love when the photographer comes equipped with the speaker. I've started doing it myself just in case they don't, and
Mhm.
have a little clip one. But that's a really big thing that can get forgotten about the day. And it just like, it eases, like it just kind of puts this like overarching comfort level.
Well, and
that
everyone's
it's really
kind of
important.
singing and dancing in the meantime for the pump up. Or, you do the sappier stuff for your... let me back up, actually. When you're doing a shoot, typically, in theory, you don't want to shoot dinner before the first look. Like it's kind of in the same order sequence of a wedding or whatever the, event is. And so, you do you pump up stuff and then your sappier stuff. And then as the energy's starting to get a little lower, you're towards the end, you got to bring the energy back up. Like you think of the dinner and dance, right? Everyone's starting to get pumped back up and ready to party, So in the same way, you got to try to ebb and flow with that energy too, like get them to lock into each other and then pump back up for the end of it too.
Yeah.
So
Oh, it's true. It's true.
One other thing that I would suggest too is if you're a photographer with the idea to plan a shoot and it's quick to think, I need flowers, I need decorations, tables, get a planner involved.
Mm-hmm.
Because the role that I really play is the cohesiveness of the vision and then the behind the scenes on coordinating the shoot day. And maybe some planners are better at this than others, but I love that role in general in a wedding day. I'm watching and listening the whole time about what's needed, and we're in sync of like, oh, we need this over here. Okay, cool. Like scurry it in, or run across the hall and get what we need, or
lint roller.
move this, move that, like fix this. Like that role makes the whole thing go more smoothly. Of having a set of eyes that is overarching all the vendors' needs. So that's just something to think of. Like get somebody involved that can be that behind the scenes, pulling it together, because you'll know the difference when you do a shoot where you're like, well, that was a shit show. Like that felt uncomfortable, awkward. Did we even get what we wanted? Like you'll probably miss stuff because you don't have somebody constantly from behind the scenes moving it forward. So just, a little shout out for the wedding planners out there.
Yeah.
But I do think that that's an important role. Like somebody has to be, so that you can be in your zone of just doing the best imagery or just tending to the flowers or whatever the medium that you brought to the table is. And again, for a wedding day, I'd be remiss not to say that's why I exist and am there, is that we can do all the design in the world, but it's about that whole day flowing and allowing everybody to do their best.
Yeah, no stop start. Like if you're stuttering and you're stop starting all the time, it's like, where was I? I don't even remember.
Yeah.
Now we're off topic. I don't know, you know? So being able to just like, it's so nice. I don't know.
What other like pieces of advice, kind of like tying this whole experience together, like for anyone wanting to plan a styled shoot, like what do you think are the biggest things to keep in mind? Pieces of motivation, practical tips, like what can anyone kind of take as a practical tip to planning their own styled shoot and getting that process going for themselves?
Yeah, I would say just go for it. Do it. Just do it. Just do it, Yeah. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Like, yeah, like it was super helpful to have you all involved. And I kind of wish I would have asked you to be more involved in the planning too, even though you were, just because like you said, to have that person that's like looking or knowing like what's going on at all times, that ended up being what I was doing, which was great. I loved it.
Yeah.
But you learn as you go. And I was like, oh man, for next time, yes, definitely have a coordinator. So then, someone else knows what's going on also. But I mean, not that you didn't know, not that y'all didn't know, you did.
And part of that is the learning experience.
Right.
Right. It's kind of like, oh, okay, it would be helpful if I didn't have to run this today and on a wedding day.
Right.
And feeling it and doing it yourself helps you to see like how you would do it differently. And I've been pretty busy with our big renovation.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day,
amazing.
like it was nice that at least in the upfront part, you covered it and I got to just be.
Yeah. Yeah. That was fun.
I think too, bouncing off that asking for help, I think also not being afraid to share ideas, and maybe I feel more comfortable with this because I work with NSC and the Vault, like, hey, do you have someone helping coordinate? Or hey, do you have a lounge? Like, do you have rental stuff? Whatever already, or have you talked to these people? So maybe I feel more comfortable doing that, but being willing to ask for help, being able to say like, hey, do you have A, B, and C? If you have other ideas and you're collaborating, but also being able to say, as much as you want to expand and stuff, like, hey, that's sort of a little bit out of our realm, but the Vault has blah, blah, blah. Or maybe try so-and-so for this. Because inevitably, like, you can get really excited, but then you run out of time. There's a limited quantity of yourself that you have, right? And so being able to be like, hey, these guys would be really good for this. I might not be able to help with all of it, or whatever the case may be. Being able to delegate, I think, is really important too.
Yeah, for sure. Yes.
Solid. Cool. We did it.
Just do it.
I love it.
Just do it.
Yeah.
I know the coach in me, everything we were talking about, I was just like, yes, practice.
Yeah.
This makes my brain very happy.
Someone in my steer on Facebook posted a beautiful picture of themselves in the background was a banner, and it said, what's the best that could happen? And I love that. I love that thought. I was like, oh, remember that phrase. Like, what's the best that could happen? We get a bunch of really cool images that we can all use, put out into the world to showcase what we do and meet each other and get to do it again in the future.
Right.
So,
yeah.
Well, and I think that with all of the quote unquote disappointment we've had in the past few years, as far like in this industry in particular, as far as like COVID dampering everything and all those things like that, I think coming out of that, we have to kind of like quote unquote pump our own tires up a little bit and just be like, if success is the result we wanted, then failure is the lesson we needed, like, okay, maybe it wasn't the right timing, or okay, we can do this totally differently next time, it'll work much better. And I think that's the most important thing carrying forward out of, slingshot out of the pandemic especially, is like, we're off and rolling. What can we take from that? And as we're rolling and we're learning, how are we taking that with us? So
I love it. Cool. Well, thank you so much for listening. And if you watch, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed some of the behind the scenes content and videos and images we put on the screen throughout. I just want to thank Alyssa, Mariah, and Olivia so much for getting together and doing this. And I'll put all of our socials in the description down below. So definitely, if you're a vendor and you have any additional questions about a styled shoot, or if you are a bride or a couple or someone looking into your vendors for your wedding, we have some amazing folks here, or both. If you're a vendor who is getting married, definitely look out for these folks too. I know it's all connected, as we have multiple people on our team that have gotten engaged recently. So other than that, make sure to comment any questions you have down below. Comment your favorite part. Make sure to like and share this. Send it to a friend to get this out to people who want to hear this information and education brought to you free by all of us. Like this, the value that we're able to give in this just short hour is insane. So with that being said, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.